Listeners to Love 101 FM are advised that the views and opinions expressed in this program are not necessarily those of Love 101.
Hello and welcome to the Morning Watch on Love 101 FM. I'm your host, Toussaint. A special welcome to our listeners on love101.org, and if you're overseas and on the move, US listeners can access us at 712-832-8001. And if you're in the UK, 0330-332-6541, or join us via the Love 101 FM app that can be downloaded from the Google Play Store or the Apple Store. You can also join us on Love 101 FM Facebook and YouTube Live. In the first watch today, more on the UN Cybercrime Treaty. And in the second watch, snapshots of news. For our social media question, we ask, what are your thoughts on the matriculation requirements in schools? We're asking you to share those responses on our Love 101 FM Facebook page and YouTube channel, and also on WhatsApp 876-997-3125 using the hashtag The Morning Watch. We'll share your responses later on in the program, but before all of that, here's our quote.
All right, today's I quote says, "Things will affect us. Be careful not to allow them to infect us." This one is from, I believe, is Raquin Allen.
Yeah, morning, Joka.
Good morning. Good morning.
Things will affect us.
But be careful not to allow them to infect us.
How you interpret that, my brother?
Boy, I mean, you'll go through things. I believe you'll go through different, situations, experiences in life.
Yeah.
But I would say learn from them, but just not remain dreary and sad in that moment.
Yes.
Learn from them and move on, progress.
Yeah. Well said.
Thank you.
The first watch will be back after this break.
Receive words of strength from the voice of power with Bishop Dr. Delford Davis.
God's seed has been declared many years ago and it's still raging. I will put enmity between thee and between the woman. Thy seed, their seed, a war will be on perpetually until Jesus returns. But I know who has already won the war.
With Bishop Dr. Delford Davis, brought to you by the Power of Faith Ministries International.
Hello, good morning. This is Jukal calling from Love 101. I'm speaking with Mr. Forrest.
Right here on the Family
All right, good
Station.
morning. Good morning. I'm calling to put you on hold for the morning watch.
Welcome back to the Morning Watch. Thanks for staying with us. I'm your host, Toussaint. Now, on Thursday, August 8th, 2024, at a meeting in New York, there was an agreement by unanimous vote on a draft document known as the UN Cybercrime Treaty. And this draft treaty is expected to be adopted, by the way, at the UN General Assembly later on this year. So, what are the ongoing issues and implications associated with this treaty? Well, to discuss this, we have online Trevor Forrest, CEO of 876 Technology Solutions. He's also a cybersecurity consultant. Good morning to you, Mr. Forrest. I am well, and you? Right, right. Fervent Opus in campus. All right, we're good, we're good, we're good, we're good. All right. Yes, Trevor Forrest. For the record, what do you know about this cybercrime treaty, and what is your understanding of why it was even contemplated? Yeah. Mhm. 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 I can't. Mm. Wow.
What has been happening is that when you put that into perspective, cybercrime will be the third largest economy next to US and China,
Hmm.
right? By sheer numbers. And it's a real threat because what is happening is the crime now isn't localized. The crime is globalized because of the digital nature of, of you know, cyber threats.
Yeah.
It knows no boundaries. So the threats can manifest anywhere in the world. So it is a threat to all nations, right? And at those costs, you're talking about some serious implications if those things go unchecked, right? So that's the first thing. The second thing is countries globally are going digital. And, you know, whether you like it or not, everybody likes the benefits of what going digital affords you.
Mm-hmm.
So moving that way, there's some baggage that comes with it. When you go digital, then you have to secure things. Because if you don't secure things, you will be a victim of this juggernaut, which is cybercrime, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, the threat actors don't necessarily have to reside in your country. They can perpetrate the crime from another country, and you would never have recourse because they're not subject to the laws of your country.
Right.
Right? So those are some important things to put into perspective to understand now why it is that nations across the globe have now viewed this thing as you know, a global threat that needs a global response.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Now, in looking through the draft treaty and looking through some of the concerns that you know I've seen expressed, while some of those concerns are legitimate, what is always interesting is that some of the concerns as it relates to privacy and data protection and digital already exist. So if you think about the concept of privacy and what's in the cyber security space, we are well seized on the fact that the concept of privacy went away a very, very, very long time ago.
Hmm. So that's a misnomer or a myth by now.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, by the same token, anybody, especially those who are even writing stories about it, that has a mobile device in their hand,
Right.
They gave up their privacy a long time ago.
Wow.
Anybody who goes on the internet, privacy a long time ago. But the fact of the matter is, this is the world that we live in now. While the concerns about privacy and how information is moved around are real, they're legitimate. What we have to focus on is what are the guardrails and what is the recourse that you have when either you suspect or in actuality your privacy is breached. That is kind of where we need to focus on, because there are some things that are not going to go away. So now you have to focus on the things that give you protection when these things that you are not cool with occur. And that is why Jamaica, for one, and I speak to Jamaica, other countries have done this, but Jamaica, as you would recall, enacted a data protection law.
Yes.
And that law is extremely important because for the first time, it put the citizen in control of their personal data and gave them extraordinary rights to control how their data is treated by any other person or entity. Right? And I think, and it's a very far-reaching piece of legislation, and I'm not sure everybody understands the necessity of this thing, but it is a major component in providing recourse in a world where your digital information, your personal data, and your privacy is under a fair amount of threat, both from threat actors and some would argue your own government.
So step back a bit, Trevor Forrest, as you mentioned about our own government. Jamaica has so far signed into this treaty, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
From what I understand.
Yeah. And what are the implications for that signing in from a Jamaican perspective?
Well, so and to put this really generally, it is in concert, I believe, with other treaties that we currently are part of. So one of the things that it affords us as a country is, should crimes of that nature, cyber crimes, be conducted in Jamaica from other countries,
right,
we now we're no longer restricted or confined by the jurisdictional lines that involve trying to prosecute someone in another country for effecting a crime in Jamaica, because that's a real thing. So what it allows us to do is to cooperate with other law enforcement agencies in other jurisdictions in the prosecution of a crime that affects our citizen here.
Stick up in right there though, Trevor Forrest, because they're saying that in the real world, it is not it's not linear, it's not as balanced as it ought to be. I mean, in terms of little Jamaica, in comparison to our big neighbors up north, they perhaps can demand that they get information from us when they see that the treaty has been breached or there are security threats that are affecting their people. How much is it on the other end of the spectrum? Can we be asking them for information and expect to receive in the same way?
Absolutely. But here's the thing. How is that different from what prevails now?
Well, they're saying, persons are arguing that even now, that's not the same. It's not level.
Exactly. And I think we need to just get over that situation. That
okay. Tell you what, Trevor Forrest, we're up on a break, so hold that thought before you go any further. Okay. We'll be right back.
No problem.
Ready to experience 6 times more freshness in your clothes? Try Downy Scent Beads. Its fragrance is so amazing, you have to sniff it to believe it. Try Downy scent beads today. 6 times more freshness versus using detergent alone.
Well, if you want appliances for your home with the quality high and the price low, get it on Habasco. Get it on Habasco. Everything with the Habasco. If you want to get on Habasco. Your home and look at it on Habasco.
Our Home and Friends presents Isaiah, a reggae opera portraying the life of the greatest prophet and poet, coming on October 5 and 6 at the National Arena. What do you know it? Tickets adults $2,000, children $1,200. Follow ticket hotline on 876-809-5877. Follow us on social media for more information. Get your tickets now for Isaiah, reggae opera, October 5 and 6 at the National Arena. What do you know it? Don't miss it.
Once upon a time, there was a girl named Kay. She loved to dance and play. One day at school, she got very ill, and Mom was left with an unbearable bill. It would be easier if Mom was prepared. With school companion, 80% of the bill is cleared. Medical care for children is a must. For as low as $2,540 per month, make unbearable medical bills go away. Sign up for Study for School Companion today. Conditions apply. The Summer Pro app is a great way to get Flow prepaid mobile plans. You know the plans that give you real unlimited social media, YouTube, anywhere across unbeatable TikTok, and for limited time only, get a 28-day plan for only $2,900 when you activate through the app. That's a $500 saving.
Not easy. Convenient way to save on your Flow 28-day prepaid mobile plan. Unlimited social and anywhere calls is to download the Toussaint Flow app or visit ToussantFlow.com.
Download today and start saving.
Welcome back to the Morning Watch. Thanks for staying with us. I'm your host, Dylan Toussaint. And this is the first watch. We are looking on the UN Cybercrime Treaty. And in so doing, we have online Trevor Forrest, CEO of 876 Technology Solutions, and he's also a cybersecurity consultant. Trevor Forrest, before the break, you were telling us about how this is going to pan out when you compare Jamaica with, say, our neighbors up north.
Right. So one of the concerns that the other line is being expressed is that the playing field isn't level.
Yeah.
And can I tell you, it never has been and it won't, because that's just the nature of things. Right? So what we have to look at is, okay, how, it benefits us given our condition, our needs, and so on. Now let me say a couple of things on that. We have what we call MLAT's mutual legal assistance treaties and so on with a variety of different countries. And we have to understand that these threats do not only originate in one place. So there are going to be times when we need to collaborate with countries that are not United States, and we tend to limit our scope to, just that country. Cyber threats don't only originate there. In fact, the majority of them do not originate from there. Right? So we have to be in a position, a situation where when we identify threats that originate in other countries, that we, with the limited resources that we have, can call on our international partners to help. Because at the end of the day, when somebody hacks the bank account that you have, what are you going to look for assistance? You're going to call the law enforcement agencies here, you're calling up your government, and you're going to ask, what are you doing and why can't you? Because you have money. Yeah. Right?
Yeah.
So we kind of have to put those things into context and perspective, because there are global threats and implications that affect you, the citizen, and that is what these governments are trying to speak to. Again, I'm not saying that the concerns are legit. No. How does the treaty attempt to ensure that your rights to whatever privacy is left are maintained? Now, one of the things you'll notice in the law, which is again why our Data Protection Act being passed was so important, is the draft speaks to the fact that any activity surrounding mutual, activities between jurisdictions must conform to the local data protection laws of the jurisdiction. So those things must always be contemplated and considered. So when data is being treated or moved between jurisdictions, it must be in compliance with the data protection laws, if they exist, of those jurisdictions. And if you look at our data protection legislation, it is extrajudicial because of these kinds of realities, right? And when I say extrajudicial, just for your audience, it means our data protection law can apply to citizens' data in other jurisdictions.
Wow.
So if an investigation is going on and somebody requests data from about you and it is being sent in a legal way to another jurisdiction, it must be treated with in concert and in recognition of our data protection laws, because our laws protect your information, you as a citizen, right? The second aspect of the treaty that is important to contemplate is the fact that it speaks to human rights. And again, we have a constitution, we have a charter of rights, and there are global constructs for human rights and so on. It has to operate within the context of the human rights requirements locally and globally.
What about freedom of speech?
So I'm not sure the extent of to which this particular treaty speaks to freedom of speech, because again, there are global constructs for that. And again, as far as I can see, this treaty ensures that whichever local or jurisdictional laws exist, those have to be observed first in the, carriage of any sort of investigation or anything like that.
Yeah, there are those who may argue that all of this looks good on paper, but in reality, is it not a form of what some persons regard as the formation of a one world order or government, where persons are going to control the world?
So again, how is that different from what previous now?
They're saying that it has increased now, that with these additional treaties and everything that is to be signed on an international sphere, it's only making it worse.
Yeah, 40 years ago, we had the same conversation. And you'd be saying the same thing. And the fact of the matter is, there are some things that will not change. They'll just keep happening. Right? So unless the readers of those arguments are able to devise a way to completely stop that overnight, well, that's the reality of the world that we live in. What we have to fall back on is the fact that every country has laws, and what citizens must do, which is something that we don't do very well here. And when I say citizens, I mean the small man, is understand and use the laws. Because when you speak to a lot of the layman population, their viewpoint is, why laws, law, and court is for the rich man. That is what we need to erode, right? And once the small man has access to the law, the defense of his rights using the law, then you start to see some of these things fade away. The challenge is, in my view, and this is my view, is that the mindset is that I don't have access to the same justice that a more fortunate person has. And, that's perhaps because lawyers are expensive and going to court is expensive. Now, I think if more people had access to the laws that protect them, then you would start to see a shift in how certain things are governed.
Yeah.
Including your privacy.
Yeah. So is there a downside to this? Is there you talk about pros and we have cons. What are the cons in this regard? In the treaty? Anything on the negative side?
Yeah, man, yeah. So the cons are primarily where, when you look at the nature of cybercrime and the nature of digital, right? And in the concept now, in the concept of what the treaty is trying to accomplish. One of the challenges I've always had with our existing cybercrime legislation is the fact that when your data is being used, whether lawfully or in the movement of a case or so on, when your data is being used, right, and taking into consideration that your data is in electronic or digital format, one of the biggest problems I have is when a case is done and it is the need for your data no longer exists, there is no way to guarantee that it is purged.
When it no longer becomes necessary and applicable. They just pop it up, pop up somewhere.
Well, think about it. Let us say the law enforcement people raid an establishment and they take a laptop. Now they take it because they're investigating a particular crime. Right? Let us say drug trafficking. Right? Now they go on that laptop and they find information related to the drug trafficking case that they are prosecuting, right?
But also,
and then they find a whole bunch of pornography, let us say.
Right.
Has nothing to do with the case at hand and what they raided their place for in the first place. But them say, well, hold on, but this man not only doing drug trafficking, I mean, doing these other things. Now, perhaps the warrant they got was for one particular thing.
Yes.
But because there is limited protection from accessing other data in a digital electronic format, what happens now when the drug enforcement part finish and that same data, just because they had access to it, is now used
to escalate
for completely different things, which they would have never found if it was in a different mode.
That's an interesting example. We're out of time though. Thank you.
So that is something that is a concern, and there needs to be legislation to treat with that.
I think we have to leave it there, but that's a very interesting illustration. Thanks so much for joining us this morning, and fervent forever.
Fervent, sir.
Bless you. Have a good day.
All right, Chief.
Yeah,
thank you.
Listeners, the Morning Watch will return in just a moment.
The time by Jam Bank is
7:30.
Looking to add a touch of elegance to your room? The right way.
For the best in Sunday morning gospel, nothing beats listening to Sunday Praise on Love 101 FM with me, your host, Bertrand Graham. Hear today's favorites, yesterday's classics, and pretty much anything else in between. And there's plenty more to some of the music, including Living Well, your Sunday morning health and wellness feature, plus opportunity for you to share your thoughts and send your dedications to family and friends. So get your day and indeed your week off to a great start. Tune in to your family station, Love 101 FM, this and every Sunday morning at 6 for Sunday Praise.
Well, if you want buy appliances for your home with the quality high and the price low, get it on my Basco. Get it on my Basco. Everything with the price low, like a key on my Basco. Your home and your kitchen on top that.
Sardine, with the man the making up. Follow the pan with the platforms and the winner up on supermarkets. Everybody sell it. You want it? What's about me push a lit?
Pick up gray sardines with peppers, vegetable oil, water, and olive oil with peppers.
Pick up your breakfast, lunch, or dinner. Shake it, don't spice it up, make it simmer. Bring a sardine, get the better flavor. It can easy as you print it. Ready?
Gray sardines follow the better flavor.
Welcome back to the Morning Watch. Thanks for staying with us. I'm your host, Dylan Toussaint. Let's now look at the newspapers to see what Jamaicans and others are saying and doing. In the Gleaner, Dominican Republic will deport up to 10,000 Haitians a week, citing an excess of immigrants. Also in the Gleaner, breast cancer cases rising. In the Observer, put ACs in schools. JTA supports call to make classrooms cooler and more comfortable. Okay. Also in the Observer, Gilead licenses HIV prevention drug to generic drug makers. And in Loop News, government launches $20,000 one-off reverse income tax credit program. And also Fitz-Bailey heads to Turks and Caicos as deputy commissioner. Those are some of the major stories in our newspapers. Coming up next, we'll read some of the feedback from our social media question. What are your thoughts on the matriculation requirements in schools? We're asking you to leave a comment on our Facebook page and YouTube channel, Love 101 FM Jamaica, or WhatsApp, 876-997-3125. We'll be right back.
The NHD is now accepting applications from public sector pensions for smart energy grants of up to $1.5 million. With this grant, you can install solar panels at your home and lower your electricity bill. Applications will be accepted via the NHD website or in person at NHD branch offices up to Friday, October 4. For more information on the Smart Energy Public Sector Pensioners Grant, visit the NHD website or any NHD branch office.
Are you looking to improve your education status or achieve a career goal? Register now with the Overseas Examinations Commission as a private candidate for January 2025 CSEC exams. Deadline is October 11, 2024. Don't miss this opportunity to achieve your academic dreams. Call us at 876-618-3721. Visit our website at overseasexams.org.jm or visit our offices in Kingston or Montego Bay. Follow us on social media at Overseas Exams. The OEC, Jamaica's Examinations Hub. Conditions apply.
Well, if you want buy appliances for your home with the quality high and the price low, get it on my Basco. Get it on my Basco. Everything with the need, Basco. It's like what you need on my Basco. Get it on my Basco. your whole head. You're kicking up that rock bash. The thing I give you more.
Welcome back to the Morning Watch. Thanks for staying with us. I'm your host, Dylan Toussaint. Let's now join Jokal for a look at how our Facebook, YouTube, and WhatsApp friends answered today's question. What are your thoughts on the matriculation requirements in schools? Jokal?
All right, so Cherry in Spanish Town. Good morning, Cherry. Cherry says it's a good look and a good opportunity for young people who want to do higher education, directing them rather to the path of their career choice. So yes.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much, Cherry, as usual, for your commitment in that regard. And so we segue, listeners, into the second watch. In our snapshots of news today, we're focusing, at least initially, on two main issues. Number one, the impending childless crisis. And secondly, we're asking, do we really need immaculate grades to matriculate? Now, let me explain. Many women have made the conscious decision to have children. Others may want to, but can't or don't. All have their reasons. Whatever they are, it is now causing experts to say that Jamaica is in crisis as we face a declining birth rate. Also, we're looking at the fact that a lower than expected grade in one subject has reportedly kept a student out of higher learning at her school. And for that, there has been admonishment. Indeed, according to the president of the National Secondary Students' Council, schools must move away from rigid policies that reduce students to their exam results and instead adopt practices that reflect a more comprehensive view of education. End of quote. Well, to discuss these snapshots, we have online Pastor Christopher Kennedy, pastor of Joyand and Abraham's Mennonite churches in St. Elizabeth. Good morning to you, Pastor Kennedy.
Good morning. Good morning.
Great.
Always glad to be here.
Yes, good to have you with us again. Now, in your view, Pastor, should the reported decline in Jamaica's birth rate be a cause for concern or a cause for celebration?
Well, good morning to your listeners.
Yes.
Based on what the research is suggesting, it should be a cause of concern because it appears that we're more sparse and overwhelmingly so. When a country, a state gets into that kind of decline, hardly any so far has recovered. It just continues to be a downward spiral. And my research on it has shown that particularly countries in Europe and parts of North America, it just keeps getting worse and worse despite all that government tries to do. There are instances where government is giving people a lot of incentives to have children, and the results don't seem to be very impactful at all. So it's not something that I think, based on what we're seeing, we want any country to get into, especially from the fact that we need a good amount of young people in the next generation to be there to drive the economy. I think it's a cause for concern.
Yeah, but are there those who are saying that we have been concerned for many years about overpopulation in Jamaica, to the point that we had a campaign, you'd remember, running for many years.
Oh yeah.
Two is better than too many.
From I was a child.
Right. and now we are seeing the success of that campaign. Why is it that we are therefore so concerned about this decline?
Right. Let's use China as an example. I was listening to Ben Shapiro, who is a very good commentator. I think I would describe him as the most popular Jew in the world. He has 6 million subscribers. And his position was that China cannot take over the world. And Shapiro is saying that their one-child policy for decades have cut their population by close to 500 million. And that is why China now is doing their best, so active and so aggressive in getting people to get into their country and work and get citizens and so on. And his point is that they cannot take over the world. We don't have to be worrying about whether China can take over the world, because they certainly, with an inadequate population and inadequate amount of young people to drive the economy, just will not strive for very long, and it won't be long before the economy gets into a crisis. So it's a serious thing. We have to be very, very careful. I think we have overdone. We have overdone the
campaign works.
Yeah, we should have ceased at some point. It's overperformed.
Yeah. Well, as far as you're aware, Pastor Kennedy, I mean, apart from the fact that many women have decided not to have children, what are some of the other possible reasons for this decline? I mean, from your perspective.
Wow. This is a Christian station, and I'd like to approach things from that perspective. I think a growing type of secularism has had a lot to do with it.
With the decline? Secularism?
Yes, a growing, yes.
Oh, say more on that, Pastor.
I think as we... let's talk about the elections in America right now. I think what is happening is that people are pushing back against a kind of far-left ideology that is attacking Western civilization. And I have been very surprised to see how maybe the Democratic Party have taken on very secular ideas. When you talk about transgenderism, when you talk about homosexuality, when you talk about things like those, it seems that we have departed from a biblical model and a biblical worldview. 2 generations or 3 generations ago, England, Europe, North America largely would have been considered as domains where the worldview was Christian. Nowadays, that is declining too rapidly. Australia, New Zealand, and so on. And I think the appreciation for life, love for children, love for people, an approach to life that is positive and hopeful and so on is just gradually draining away. And, I think we're seeing the results of that. For too long, I think these things have been dominant in our colleges, in our schools, in our universities, amongst our lecturers, amongst our academics and so on, that it is now taking its toll, and it was not challenged. And I think it needs to be challenged, and we need to look back and see that it is not getting us anywhere. It's not making us love life anymore, not making us more prosperous, not making us come together more, be more hopeful of the future and so on. It's just not working. Secularism, I think, is a dead end.
And you're equating, it seems to me, secularism with the notion that some people have that it's best that they do not have children, or they wait for a longer period of time before they have children.
I think it's okay. Women today, for example, a career. It's okay to wait on a career. I'm an educator.
I'm so sorry. Stick a pin right there, Pastor Kenny. We're up on a break. Really want to hear more on this. We'll be right back.
Follow the one with the fact that's a living up on supermarkets.
Cartoons, follow the better flavor.
The time is
7:45.
Sometimes when we read is a listening ear, becomes the logical reasoning and spiritual guidance on what appeals to us. That's why I'm here. I'm Dr. Joe Pinckney, the counselor, your counselor, on Love 101 FM, Tuesdays and Wednesdays, 10 to 11 p.m. You know you can call on me. I will listen and more. So let's talk about what's bothering you. Only 3. Listen, call in, text, or voice message. I'm Dr. Jane Pinkney, counseling psychologist, ready with the listening ear. Tuesdays and Wednesdays, 10 to 11 p.m. Right here on Family Station, Love 101 FM.
I love doing my own thing. So to have to live by my landlady rules, kind of rough. I can only park near the front gate to the right of the mango tree, but not on the lawn. Well, I fulfill 2 dreams with 1 dream bank savings plan. You know. I buy my dream home and I live by my own rules.
Stop wishing you could. With your Gen Bank savings, you absolutely can. Gen Bank will help you find a way.
Welcome back to the Morning Watch. Thanks for staying with us. I'm your host, Dylan Toussaint, and this is the second watch. We're actually looking at snapshots of news items, and firstly, we are looking on the impending childless crisis. In so doing, we have online Pastor Christopher Kennedy, pastor of Joyland and Abraham Mennonite churches in St. Elizabeth. I think before the break, Pastor Kennedy, you're responding to the, well, I was asking you initially about why is it that we are having this decline in birth rate? And your response was that one of it is secularism. And I know I'm asking, are you equating the idea or the belief or the notion that some people should wait before having their children as secular?
Right. No. I think with everything, as we were discussing earlier, there's a point where you pass a threshold and it can get too extremist. You know? And one other thing, as I talked about secularism, it has been well researched that the most unhappy generation of people over the last 100 years or more has been the Gen Zs. And when you talk about this Gen Z, you see that by talking with them, many of them would say something like, I am not religious, I am spiritual, you know? And my contention has always been that solves nothing, because all that means is that we're going to end up with, since we have 7.5 billion people on the earth now, you're going to end up with 7.5 billion different religions, you know? People have lost a sense of godness. They've rejected the gospel. You know, we have been sold a bill of goods by thinking that Christianity is just simply a belief. It's not grounded in facts. We have become, I think, uncivilized in many respects over the years. Because when you look at, say, history, and you see that the greatest of the scientists, the Keplers and the Newtons and the Galileos, were Christian. We are abandoning what we have known over history, across history, to be an authentic Christian faith, and we are playing around, I think, with things that are secular. Life cannot continue like that without God. You cannot live without God. You cannot live without a sense of knowing that somebody is there, somebody loves you. The resurrection of Jesus Christ has established that. I tell myself I'm prepared to debate anybody that the resurrection of Jesus Christ, the truth of Christianity, can stand the test of time. It can go into the most rigorous intellectual spaces and stand its own more than secularism. And I think we've seen this. We've seen more depression. We've seen more a sense of giving up, abandonment of hope. We've seen suicide increasing among Gen Zs. And I think we are paying a price, a heavy price, for entering with what we call now a kind of postmodernism, where it is feelings rather than facts, where it is how you internalize things rather than data that determines truth. That is dangerous. And you know, the scripture tells you, you know, that when a nation rejects God, the hope for that nation is not good at all. So I think secularism is the Bible.
Secularism, yeah.
And
Isn't there a place, though, Pastor Kennedy, for appreciating those who see responsible planning of their family as an act of stewardship, to wait until they can afford to properly raise a family at least financially, before they venture into that.
Yes, and I want to affirm that. I want to affirm that. I am an educator. I'm a guidance counselor, so I deal with young people a lot. We counsel them about career choices and so on. And that's absolutely true. You are correct. But what we're on here now is a refrain. We established that early in the conversation that there's a point where you no matter how valuable something is, you can overdo it. And planning your family. I mean, I'm meeting young ladies. I'm meeting young men. I'm talking to children in the classroom and so on. And they're saying that I'm not going to get married. That's the only thing. I'm not going to get pregnant. I'm not going to have any children. There's just a kind of despair, a kind of hopelessness, an approach to the world that has lost its enthusiasm, its vibrancy, and I think God being absent from the spirit of man, God being absent from the consciousness of the individual, God not being a part of the plan, people's plan, is seriously impacting how people think, whether they want to live, how they look at life, whether they're enjoying it. I think, yes, plan your life, plan your family, put your career first and so on. But there's going to come a point where you can overdo that. And we're seeing that happen.
Yeah. Okay. Next issue has to do with the whole matter of matriculating in the high schools. What is your understanding of the incident that's in question? What is your understanding of it?
I have long come to the conclusion that many countries are having the same problem. Education is an enormously expensive endeavor. I was surprised at one point doing my research to learn that in America, for example, and parts of Europe, the teachers are not the best paid profession. I heard Dr. Horace Chang saying that I think he said about 2 years ago that the government spent in 10 years $1 trillion on education. When you divide that by the number of students that would have been in the school over that 10 years, you see that it's not an enormous amount of money at all. Education is expensive. And I think this fight for position, fight for getting to the better schools and so on, results from that. I heard the comments about what the PTA person said.
Or
I was hoping that...
Well, the president of the National Secondary School Students Council.
Or the president of National Secondary School, yeah.
Yes.
I'm hoping that as the individual emphasizes one thing, the individual doesn't discount another. I think we have to still strive for excellence. We still have systems in place that highlight and encourage students to do well.
To do the best. But then, Pastor, if you have a situation where a student has done well in 3 of the CAPE subjects, as I am understanding it, but got a grade 4 in 1, and I guess the family is now saying, how fair is that to not allow her to matriculate to the higher grade, to the higher level in high school because of the 1 failure? Is that fair?
Well, is it because of the 1 failure, or is it that there are other students competing and, outperforming?
So if that's a policy at the school, it seems. I'm not sure, and based on the reports. Is that a fair policy? That's what's in question.
Well, I'm saying if it is, because that sounds strange to me. It seems that what is happening is that sometimes students are outdoing other students and getting the position over them. Just to say that it would be strange to think that the students just simply being seen as unfit and not being able to cope. They get into the program because of those scores. I don't think that's what they're saying at all. I doubt it.
Mm. And generally in our schools, what are your concerns and comments in how persons are able to matriculate to another level? Even how some schools you have to have a certain grade to reach there. moving from PEP. Any concerns even from that angle?
Well, I have a concern, just like the individual who you spoke. Is it that we are disenfranchising individuals, students who, if they get into these programs, they get into UE, if they get into UTech, if they get into CMU and places like those, who would nevertheless do well, And I would agree that many of them would go on to do well. I remember when Western College, the Adventist institution, would accept students without the typical 5 O's in those days and 2 A's. And they did that for many, many years, and those students went on to perform just as well, as any other college student, So, yes, I'm concerned about that, and I think it is disenfranchising. I think it is unfair to our country and our taxpayers when that happens. I think the problem, though, as I said earlier, the fight for space,
that's what created it.
I think that's a major problem.
Yes. And recommendations, therefore, Pastor Kennedy, you are also involved in guidance counseling, or have been. What do you recommend?
We need politicians who believe, in the 1970s. I am not. Maybe I'm disillusioned. I'm not very engaged in politics and that kind of thing. But I remember in the 70s, we had people with some ideologies. I'm not afraid to mention Michael Manley, and his concept of how we valued education. I think we have lost that over the years. Our politicians need to recognize that if you are serious about investing in education, you might not get the results in a 10-year space. But if you continue to believe that, we've seen many countries do that. You don't get overnight results. You might have to wait for a long time. It's like an investor who invests billions of dollars and is nevertheless willing to wait, sometimes 10 years for the results. We have to be willing to wait. We need politicians who believe in education, who are convinced that in the long run, it will make Jamaica a better place. And this 2020 vision that we were talking about, 2030, vision that we were talking about, no wonder people are saying that we're not going to get there in time. It is because we have not made that sacrifice. We have to have firm conviction that although education is expensive, we have to go the road, because down the road somewhere, the Bible says, cast your bread on the waters. It shall return unto you after many days.
Yeah. Well, we have so much more we could discuss. That's why I know this is not my preferred method of dealing with these topics. I like when we can deal with one topic and we drill down into it. But we have dealt with 2 this morning, Pastor. Thank you so very much for your insight.
Always a pleasure. Always a pleasure. Love 101.
Have a safe day. Thank you, listeners, for being with us. For information, we'll get copies of this program. Call our production department at 876-968-959627. This has been The Morning Watch. Thanks to our producer, Kathy Gale, and our guests. Please join Mr. Stokely Marshall next week as he continues to look at the issues of the day. I'm Dylan Toussaint, reminding you to be purposeful, faithful, thankful, and watchful as I return you to Love in the Morning.
Thank you for listening to The Morning Watch. We also want to thank Bashko for sponsoring The Morning Watch today. That is the store that gives you more. Coming up next is Forward in Faith, brought to you by the New Testament Church of God in Bayside, Portmore.
The Ministry of Health and Wellness works to ensure the provision of quality health services and promotes healthy lifestyles and environmental practices for all Jamaicans. The time by the Ministry of Health and Wellness is
8 a.m.
We'll return to this